Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Suburban Pathfinder. Tonight, the KLR gets her loins girded for battle. A battle with the Earth itself. Crash bars. We're doing crash bars. This is a modification that I've been meaning to make to the bike pretty much since it left the showroom. And I've done tons of other stuff to the bike, and I'm only now, 9 months or something later, finally getting around to doing crash bars. It's a kind of a big decision. Crash bars, they're not terribly inexpensive, and there are a bunch of different options for this bike. And as most of you will recognize, I've gone with the DirtRacks versions, the full coverage versions. DirtRacks has two different types of crash bars. I think both of the crash bars that DirtRacks makes will work on any of the Gen 3 KLRs, but one of them is sort of more oriented towards the adventure model, and then there's this one which is more oriented towards the traveler and the base model. I chose the DirtRacks, and actually I think this was the first aftermarket crash bar that was available for the Gen 3. It came out just a few months after the Gen 3 was introduced. There are other options, but this is one of the most popular ones. And I chose it for a couple of reasons, which I'll go over. I did consider all of the common options anyway, SW Motec and T-Rex Racing, Happy Trail. Tusk recently came out with crash bars much later than everybody else. I like the looks of those. I actually ordered a set of Tusk bars, and that transaction went completely sideways. I ended up not getting the bars, and in frustration, I went back to my first choice, which was the DirtRacks. I chose these for a couple of reasons. They're not maybe the most attractive looking ones, but they are the most utilitarian ones, I think. They provide a lot of protection. You've got these horizontal crossbars, which give you some options for mounting other things when you're doing some adventuring. You could mount a Rotopax mount on here, or some soft luggage, or whatever. But I mostly liked the large amount of coverage, because crash bars are mostly designed to protect your bike when it falls over, and most of the impact is down here. And if you're riding in the desert, it's likely that you're never going to fall against a tree. You might fall against a big rock or something, but you're probably not going to have a limb get kicked up by the tire and slam into the side of your bike or slam into your shins. And I just like the amount of protection that these showed. In the photos, they really look huge and obtrusive. I was a little concerned that they were going to be too big, but they're actually quite small. A lot smaller than they look in the photos, and not terribly heavy. They're definitely made out of heavy grade steel, but they only weigh about 6 pounds on a side, so they'll end up adding 12.5 pounds all told. I think the connecting hardware is about another half a pound. So the other reason I chose these is that several of the other crash bar options for the Gen 3 KLR have been described as being two-person jobs for installation. And this I consistently see being described as a one-man job. And to me, that's pretty important. I'll admit right away, I'm pretty much of a neophyte when it comes to adventure riding in general. And I've done absolutely no adventure travel, any adventure touring on motorcycles. But I have done quite a bit of traveling on motorcycles. I've also done a bit of traveling in old cars, and I'm not talking about like a 10-year-old Camry. I'm talking about antique cars. And that's sort of adventure travel in and of itself. If you've done any of that, you know that sooner or later you're going to end up on the shoulder of the road in the gravel, lying on your side, with rocks digging into your shoulder and your hips, staring up at the bottom of your machine, trying to figure out how to fix something. And I think, particularly when it comes to adventure riding, you're best off not doing it solo if you can avoid it, but you never know what's going to happen. And crash bars that we're going to have to require more than one person to mount are just not an option, not in my opinion. The KLR's got this wonderful plastic fairing, which provides lots of protection when you're riding from the elements, but there's a lot of stuff going on under there. Almost the entire cooling system is under the fairing. The radiator, the coolant reservoir, the fan, a lot of the cooling hoses. There's all kinds of cables and wiring going on under there. So it is conceivable, or even probable, that at some point in time, on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, you're going to take this fairing off. And in order to take the fairing off, you've got to take the crash bars off. And the ones that are described as being two-man installation, I'm sure I could get them off on the side of the road, but if I can't get them back on, what good are they? What am I going to do with them? Throw them down an embankment into a drainage ditch and just ride away? That would not be an acceptable option at all. So that ultimately is probably the main reason I went with these crash bars from DirtRacks. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and mount these. As I said, it's supposedly a one-man job, and I do like doing installation videos for small things, but there are installation videos already out there regarding these particular racks, and there's instructions out there. I don't know that I could do a better job, and in this case, I really think I need to focus on making sure these bars are mounted correctly. So I'm not going to film the installation. I'm going to put these on, and I will come back. More importantly, what I want to take a look at, what I haven't seen covered anywhere else online, is how these fairing side covers, these carbon fiber fairing side covers from A to Z Composites, are going to interface with the crash bars. These upper tabs, the upper mounting point for the crash bars, as is the case with the factory Kawasaki crash bars that come on the Adventure model, use the lower mounting point here, this lower bolt, as the attachment point to the frame. And the design of these is a little bit different than the original plastic covers that come with the bike. And I had some conversation with Charles Coffey from A to Z Composites last week. He's pretty confident that all this stuff's going to go together, but I want to see how it works out. So I'm going to go ahead and get these mounted up, and I'll be right back. So as you can see, I've got the bars mounted up. It is indeed a one-man job, not particularly difficult. It did take me a little bit longer than I was expecting, however. It's probably about a 1-hour job, particularly if you're using the factory plastic side covers on your fairing. I didn't have to make any modifications. Everything lined up perfectly. The bars work just fine with these covers, but because these carbon fiber covers are actually integrated into the mounting, they don't just snap over once you've got the crash bars in place. It takes a little bit of fiddling to get everything lined up and get all the threads started and get everything torqued down properly. But really not a bad process at all. The mounting tabs on these bars are a little bit thicker than on the Kawasaki bars, so the front of these carbon fiber panels sits out ever so slightly, but the gap is really even all the way around. I'll throw up some close-up footage of that so you can get an idea of what it looks like now that everything's installed. But I think these look great. I think they look very, very adventure ready. I think the bike's getting close to being where we need it to be for this coming riding season. I do still have to do something about a skid plate. I've got a couple of other little farkles that need to be dealt with, like a low-profile drain plug and a couple of other little things. But I think it looks great. Every time I add something black or dark gray to the bike, it tones down that orange a little bit, and I think it just looks more and more complete. I really like the way the bike looks now. And I actually found something else for adventure riding. A ratty old dead animal in the back seat of my wife's car to really complete the adventure look, and this might save my butt on some long rides this year. So I got to do some thinking about what the topic for the next video is going to be, but when I post that, I hope to see each of you then. Later, guys.